Anyway.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Welcome to Mike's Daily Podcast. It is episode 2901, 2901. Here we are. So much fun.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
Here in PodCastro Valley, the last place on earth, Mike Matthews. And did you know about sausages? They are all kinds of fun. And I guess you would be the messages that you read in between the lines is that you find out what's happening in these current times. The sales of dinner sausages increased.
Mike's Daily Podcast.
That tends to go hand in hand with a weaker economy. That's why economists are scrutinizing
Mike's
sausage
Daily
sales.
Podcast.
Why?
Yeah!
Sausages are a cheaper substitute for higher priced proteins. So that's why people love them sausages. Yes, don't think they're the healthiest food for you. You could probably find something else. But, you gotta just be you, I guess. And isn't it mostly like the types of meat that you don't really want to eat? The worst of the worst, but it tastes good. I don't get it. Hey, other interesting foods that you shouldn't eat. Why the value meal is making a comeback. Nearly 80% of Americans said, 80% that is, said they feel fast food has become a luxury. Remember when it was just, I'm going to get something to eat because it's cheap. And people are eating out less. The guy I work with who eats out a lot with his wife, he's a little bit older than me, and they ate at a place in Niles, California. I posted some pictures from Niles. It's a cute little town, but apparently not the best restaurants there. This one restaurant he went to, he walked in, there was nobody in the restaurant he walked in with his wife, and they're just about to leave, and all of a sudden walking in the front door is the guy that's supposed to be running the place. And
here's today's podcast picture.
This isn't a picture of that restaurant. This is actually a picture from a year ago. The lovely Pillar Point Marina near Half Moon Bay. And the beautiful, we had this, it's very overcast this time of year around the Bay Area, around the oceans, around the beaches this time of year, because all that hot air, that high pressure is happening inland, and it's pushing back all that marine layer, so it just sits there. And when the sun sets, it looks like cotton candy because you don't really see the sun, but it's still pushing all that light through. So see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. It is a place that I went to many a time with this guy right here, the late great Basil the Boxer. We had many a fun walk over there. And yes, so I was there a year ago with my lovely lady friend. It was very nice. So see that picture at mikesdailypodcast.com. But he was saying, not only did the guy just show up, basically, that's running the place at this restaurant, they sit down, he asks for their order, he doesn't write it down. So he leaves, they're thinking, oh wow, he's smart, he can just retain all this information, not write it down. Nope, he comes back, he needs to know what it is again. So they tell him again, he leaves. More people show up, the place gets packed. Other things happen apparently, and then at the end of the evening, my friend gets the wrong bill. And it was a cheaper bill. He said if I would have had cash, I would have just paid for it right there and left the cheaper bill. But because he was paying with a credit card, his name would have been attached, and nope, he would have been tracked down. So he had to track down the guy that he saw earlier running the place that seemed a bit frantic, and he was going through all the receipts. You know how if you are a restaurateur, you have to go through the receipts and make sure that you process all the stuff.
Now that's legit.
That's legit. Make sure everything's legit. So he's in the middle of that, and he's looking all confused, and that's the eating out experience that my friend had. So this is why people are eating out less. This and the expenses, it's just not good. McDonald's, Burger King, and Wendy's, they are very much right now embracing the value meal because they are still trying to get people to walk in the door. 401ks. Maybe your company is having you do a 401k. I have been told you need to rebalance that at least twice a year. I am a little bit behind, so I have to get on that. Note to self, rebalance. There we go. I keep meaning to do that. That and get the fillings filled in the teeth there that I need to get filled. But apparently the number of 401k millionaires has reached a new high. Nearly 500,000 401k accounts had balances of $1 million or more. That is up about 2.5% from the prior quarter, from the spring quarter. So something like 497,000 accounts had balances of $1 million or more. And Eli Lilly, have you heard of them?
I can't believe. What the hell is this place anyway?
It's Café Anyway, that's what it is. It's a wonderful place here in PodCastro Valley for the Mike's Daily Podcast Show. Unlike Jason and Travis Kelce, I am not getting over $100 million for this podcast. Those guys, and they're really only famous because of what they've done on the gridiron, not what they've done in the podcasting world. Oh, and then one of them's famous for dating Taylor Swift, but they're kicking off a rich new deal with Amazon's Wondery. That's Amazon's podcast platform. Did you know that? Nope, neither did I. Nobody knows that. That's why Amazon's paying over $100 million, not thousand. Oh gosh, no, way over that. $100 million over that. It has exclusive ad sales and distribution rights to the popular New Heights weekly podcast. That's the name of the podcast that Jason and Travis do. The famous football brothers. And they're cashing in on their celebrity. The deal between the brothers and Wondery, which runs for 3 years, over 3 years. Let's see if they even can do a podcast like every week. Okay, Mike's Daily Podcast does it daily. Anyway, from Café Anyway. Therefore, it's in the name. But so many of these big-time cash outs in the podcast world, they pod fade. They do a couple podcasts and then they get bored. Or they got other commitments they got to take care of. Or they break up with Taylor Swift. Or something happens. As we go outside of Café Anyway, we bring you Mike's Daily Podcast. Somewhere in PodCastro Valley, the last place on earth in the land of Ameritopica. I just realized my headphones are really hot. The volume is really loud, and that's not good for my precious ears, my precious 55-year-old ears. I'm going to miss those when they're gone. So, yes, the past Wednesday, last week, that was time to begin with the next NFL season. Amazon's Wondery has global distribution rights to all audio and video episodes of New Heights with Jason and Travis Kelce. And that's Kelce spelled Kelce. Just so you know. It's a Kelce.
Good morning, Mr. Matthews.
Thank you, children, for learning the pronunciation of names, including the show's back catalog of all content. Amazon gets all that, as well as rights to create international audio adaptations of the podcast. How is that going to work? Well, I'll tell you how that's going to work because I saw that recently on YouTube. There's a guy I watch, and his name is Mike, and this is the only reason why I watch him. It's called not Mike's Daily Podcast, but Mike's Road Adventures or Road Travels or something like that. But it's another name that has Mike's, the word Mike's in the beginning. So I wanted to check it out. And he's done some cool things, gone on some trips, rented vans and whatnot, RVs to go across the country and check out beautiful places. Well, he did one several years ago. This looked like from several years ago anyway. But he updated it. And how he updated it was he used AI. And you're watching it and you're thinking, oh, wow, he suddenly has learned how to speak German. Well, number one, it's definitely not his voice. You can tell. Number two, his lips are moving, but they're not exactly in sync with the words. They're very close. But the AI is actually a type of AI where not only is it translating what he said originally in the video, but it's also applying it, making his lips move. I'm ready to tell you, kind of like when you watch some of those movies where a dog's talking or a baby's talking. Look Who's Talking, for example, or one of those other movies where they make a thing that usually doesn't talk. They make the lips move. Or what was it? Forrest Gump as I Forrest bump the podcast mic. I'm podcast Mike here. You know, Forrest Gump, you see John Lennon talking to Forrest and the mouth was moving, that kind of technology. Well, they have an AI application now that makes it look like you're talking German, even if you don't know German and it's not your voice. So they're probably going to do the same thing internationally with this Kelsey Brothers show. It continues to be available widely on all podcast services, including Wondery's various distribution channels and on YouTube. The deal also includes ad-free listening for Wondery Plus subscribers. Yeah, I didn't even know that's a thing. Live streams and rights to develop, manufacture, license, and distribute all merchandise based on New Heights, including new consumer products. Dang. So any way this could possibly make money, they're going to try and make money from. And Wave Sports Plus Entertainment will continue to provide production services for New Heights. So Wave Sports, wow, they are dancing all the way to the bank. It's another sizable...
Oh, wow, that's wild.
This is wild. This is some wild files. It's another sizable deal for Amazon's Wondery. Similar in structure to the $80 million pact it announced with comedian and podcaster Dax Shepard. Now, do you know Dax Shepard from anything? Do you know that? Sounds like Bison Bentley. Do you know him from anything? Anything? The only thing he did that, was it Jumanji or the space one, whatever that was called. And then he did that movie when he was a kid, and then he was in what was it called? Parenthood, when they adapted that movie to a TV show. That old movie that I think it was Ron Howard directed back in the 80s that had Keanu Reeves in it. They adapted it to television, and I remember Dax being in that, and he was in Alameda. It was being shot in the Bay Area. He had a houseboat across from Jack London Square. Oh, speaking
of Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Hey, this is Bison Bentley, and Mike Matthews has a couple of stories that'll make you want to ask yourself, do you know that?
Do you know that? Yeah. Do you know that? Dax? It was from that show, but I don't remember him from anything else except for this podcast. And I have subscribed to this podcast before, and then I got his. Oh, and he's famous for the actress that he married, the one from Veronica Mars. So that's how he's famous. Just like Travis is famous for Taylor Swift or his football, depending on what kind of fan you are, if you are a fan of his. But he got $80 million from that, Dax Shepard, for his podcast. And I've listened to it and gone, okay, my podcast is all over the place. It could stand to be a little more structured at times, or less structured, or be a little more crazy or less crazy. But that podcast I did not see. It was because of his big celebrity friends that he's interviewing. And that gets some attention as well. Other big name podcasters have recently signed big money deals. And, well, Joe Rogan, of course, because he's like the number one, or was the number one podcaster. He got way more than the Travis brothers, or the Kelsey brothers, the Travis Kelsey brothers. He got $250 million.
Do you have any safe spaces?
Safe spaces?
Yes, where people can go to get away from the colonialist mentality. As long as there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion policy, we'll be fine.
His safe space, Joe Rogan's safe space, is definitely Spotify. $250 million for a multi-year deal, and Spotify owns him. Then Alex Cooper, the rocker, school's out forever. Your lips are venomous poison running through my veins. His deal is what he's a Christian. His deal is worth up to $125 million, but that is not with what you would think is a podcasting service, Sirius XM. But oh yes, they are. They got into the podcasting world when they took over parts of Pandora. And the Stitcher, they also absorbed Stitcher. And I've told you stories about when I got to go to Stitcher years ago when they were one of the only podcasting apps. If you wanted to listen to a podcast, you either had Amazon's podcast app, which came with your iPhone, or you downloaded the Stitcher app and you were able to listen to podcasts. And I told them the name of my podcast, Mike's Daily Podcast. And this is back like 2011. And they said,
that's enough. Put down the mic.
No, they didn't say that. They said, stay on the mic, Mike. Keep doing your podcast. Would you like to stop by and see our building, our offices? They did have one studio at the office. And it was down there in San Francisco on Montgomery Street, in that general area somewhere. I forget, near Powell. And I went down there and talked to them, very nice people. And then they invited me back for a special podcasting party with a lot of different podcasters that were up and coming at the time. And they had pizza. And very nice people there. So that is what's happening with I guess it also helps. The Super Bowl thing might have helped the Kelsey peoples as well. So that's what's going on in the podcasting world. Now, the problem is everybody's podcasting. There's too many podcasters out there. So it's only the celebrities that are going to make money at this point. Note to self.
Note to self.
But in the world of weight loss, Eli Lilly is having, and by having, I'm saying the word having, but throwing an L in there, having. Yes, they're splitting in half the price of its popular weight loss drug, Zepbound. Yes, Eli Lilly owns Zepbound. And you've heard a lot about Zepbound. To compete with counterfeit versions, Zepbound will be sold for $400 to $550 a month compared to a previous list price that was over $1,000. And what is going on with the poor folks there at Boeing? With the Starliner being their latest failure, NASA decided 2 astronauts at the International Space Station will come home in a SpaceX capsule instead of a Boeing Starliner. It represents a failed test for Boeing's reusable spaceship. They were banking on that like big time. They're like, we're going to play in the big leagues. We're going to show up Elon Musk. Brazil's kicking Elon Musk out. With his ex, we're gonna kick him out of the space industry. Well, that didn't happen. Their stock is down after a series of problems. It makes me want to pour them a root beer and tell them to cheer up here outside of Café Anyway, somewhere in PodCastro Valley, the last place on Earth in the land of Ameritopica. They're gonna fly home the astronauts in February of next year. It's about 8 months later than what they initially expected. SpaceX won a $2.6 billion contract and has completed 42 visits to the International Space Station in its Dragon capsule. Each successful trip to and from the International Space Station earns roughly $300 million in revenue, did you know? Boeing, which won $4.2 billion, yes, more than SpaceX, almost double what SpaceX got, has written off $1.6 billion in costs. Yeesh. Elon must be like, yeah, show you up. I'm better than you. Woohoo. And other things that you say when you're winning. Maybe you're even doing the Charlie Sheen winning. Boeing's recent quantity and quality problems. Thank you.
Charlie gave me, no.
What? How did you hit that high note just then? That's insane. This is yeah. Well.
Oh my God, man.
So SpaceX showing up Boeing. Their recent quality problems with they got the 237 Max, the 737 Max jet. They've got the slowed deliveries with that. The 2 tragic Max crashes. The safety door blown off mid-flight. It's a Freudian slip. Their stock was down about 33% now, so far this year, and down about 30% since that door plug blowout One analyst thinks that Boeing should sell its space business to Northrop Grumman or Lockheed Martin or two syllables, some company with
Mike Matthews. You not know Mike Matthews. Really?
Eminem. We got Eminem.
Thank you. Yes.
The real Eminem.
If only people would sell ads on this podcast, which is what Amazon is trying to do, to sell ads, right? And by the way, Amazon also sells commercials on NFL games, and they can offer a podcast and video streaming ad package to marketers interested in reaching NFL fans, I guess, through that Chely podcast. Big media companies are securing the rights to sell ads on podcasts that appear on a variety of platforms. And by the way, I guess the other big thing about that podcast is sports podcast. And I'm not a fan of sports podcasts in any way. I do not listen at all. But apparently that Chely Brothers podcast ranks as the top sports podcast on Apple and Spotify during football season. So Amazon wants a part of that. And so it's all big. One thing I read, and this is weird. So I'm on all these podcast platforms. I'm on the Apple.
Burger Master.
I'm on the Burger Master. No, wait. That's not an app. The Apple podcast app, the Spotify app, which has podcasts. And then YouTube came along and did YouTube Music. They used to be Google Podcasts. Then they changed it to YouTube Music. And they are claiming through a recent survey that they are the most listened to platform for podcasts. Whereas Spotify says, well, we have the most downloads for podcasts. So I don't know who's right. And when it comes to listens to a podcast, you don't see that like you do on a YouTube channel when you see, oh, wow, that video's had over 7 billion views. Wow. You don't know, of course, how much of the video people watched in those views, but you don't see that with podcasts unless it is on YouTube. Then this podcast is on YouTube as well. You can see if it got played. But on other platforms, you don't. Just thought that was interesting.
Ever since I got elected, Republicans have attacked me by saying that I should go back to bartending. But let me tell you, I'm happy to any day of the week because there is nothing wrong with working for a living.
Any day of the week, I will go back to bartending because there's nothing wrong with working for a living versus podcasting, which is it really working? But there you go. I've now brought you up to date. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has given you a little pep talk. Oh, one interesting thing here. I don't even really know how to get into this, but apparently the American consumer gets shipments of primarily finished goods. Oh, that Chely news story earlier was from Variety. This one is from the fine people over at Freight Waves. And they were talking about the empty containers that we're sending back to China. And that the containers coming to America are full of stuff. And the implication is the demand is outpacing the supply of available containers. Both.
Anarchy! I don't even know what that means, but I love it.
That's the anarchy that they're discussing. The dominant flow of consumer goods into the U.S. is from Asia to Southern California, to Los Angeles. These are items like electronics, furniture, and apparel. The primary consumption markets are in the eastern half of the country, which means most of the goods that come in through the ports of Los Angeles, San Pedro, and Long Beach get moved either by rail or truck to the east. And this route represents the American consumer with shipments of primarily finished goods. It has been formed over the past 30 years as companies recognize the cost effectiveness of producing their goods in Asia. The result is that the container ships move back to Asia with empty, non-revenue generating containers. That's what I thought was interesting, that we're sending containers to Asia with nothing. Since there's no natural mechanism pushing capacity back to where it is needed most, capacity tightens rapidly at times. And let's see, well, now they're using all kinds of jargon.
Would you look at that? Another human being with a smaller creature attached to a leash.
Oh.
Hi, I'm JD Vance. What's that?
Are you asking what kind of breed he is?
For how long?
For how old he is or how long I've had him?
How long have you been walking?
I'm sorry, are you asking how our walk?
Okay, good. I love to mingle with the people. Here comes another one now. Hi, I'm JD Vance. How did you install those little wheels under your feet?
You mean my rollerblades?
Okay, good. So how long have you been walking?
Walking where?
Okay, good.
That's JD Vance meeting with the peoples. Actually, no, that's comedian Sam Kahn. It's kind of funny when I heard that. All right, well, now we've been educated about cargo containers. And look who's here. Hello, Michael Matthew. What is that you have on a leash? I am Madame Rootabega. Ooh! Madame Rootabega, that looks like on a leash is Rocky the cat doing a dance. Do you like cats? Yes. Do you like the containers? Yes. Do you like imports and exports? No. Okay, well, that's a good question to ask. Like, I was asking questions like JD Vance. Very helpful questions. Look who else is here.
Hello, Dave Mike. This is Valentino, the parking attendant.
And this is Bison Bentley. Do you know that?
Mike, all of this stuff was great. When do we get our $100 million for our podcast day?
Yeah, when are we going to get the cargo? Do you know that? I don't know. These are all good questions. Cargo questions, yes. Okay. Thank you. That just cheered me up. I was having a down moment, and all of a sudden, I got cheered up by that. And Nilly the horse. Where's Benita? Hopefully she shows up in an upcoming podcast. But till then, thank you for listening to this podcast. I think Chely Shoehart's in the next one. Maybe even going to hear from Floyd the Floorman, John Deere the engineer. But you can tell me what you think about anything we covered today. Here's the phone number.
Call Mike at the Café Anyway hotline. Area code 510-228-4640.
And with all things Mike's Daily Podcast, we go to the mainframe and hear from A-Frame and hear about the website that's called mikesdailypodcast.com. What a good name for my podcast.
Mike's Daily Podcast is written and produced and performed by Mike Matthews. His podcast is super easy to find. Download or listen to his show and read his blog at mikesdailypodcast.com. Email Mike now at mikesdailypodcast@gmail.com. See you tomorrow. Bye!